Good afternoon. We'll begin with our Planning Commission meeting for June 14th. Can we please get some roll call?
Commissioner Isiano?
Here.
Commissioner Fajardo? Commissioner Lopez?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Franz?
Present.
Chairperson Rodriguez Ceja?
Present.
And Commissioner Fajardo is absent.
And please, if Commissioner Isiano could lead us with the pledge. Moving on to item 3 on the agenda, are there any public comments that are not in the agenda?
There are none.
And for the record, we are moving our meeting minutes for May 24th to the next Planning Commission meeting. Do we need to do anything else?
No, you can just say that it's being voted on in the future because you don't have a quorum.
We won't have a quorum to approve the minutes, so we're going to move them to the next Planning Commission meeting. Okay, moving on to study session item 5.1, project consultation. Can we please get a report?
Good evening, Commission. Kevin Snyder, Director of Community Development. So this evening, the Community Development Department is sponsoring a project consultation regarding some properties in an area of our city that is east of us. So if you're familiar with the area, it is working. It is an area that is east of us along Highway 111. It's north of Highway 111. It's south of Requa, where Requa and Indio Boulevard come together, and it's kind of in that area bounded by Sultan Street and Flower Street. So it's kind of an area of our city that has a variety of land uses, ranging from light manufacturing to storage to office to entertainment. So there's a multiplicity of land uses out there. As you may remember, when we passed the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan, that took immediate effect in September of 2022. And that affected properties from Indio Boulevard all the way to Jefferson Street, which is about 3.9 miles, and it was about a quarter mile on either side. So these properties are regulated by the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan. And if you look at your screen, you'll see that the properties that I'm specifically referring to are the ones that have the blue dots on them. So when we had passed that, we got contacted by some of the property owners along Flower and Sultan Street who, after learning more about the plan and potential impacts on current and future operations, were concerned. And so we had the opportunity to sit down and meet with them and have some good conversations about their concerns, which leads to this evening. And really what the purpose of this evening is to start a conversation with you as the Planning Commission, get your feedback on thoughts and ideas around the potential of modifying the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan, and I'll explain what the interest is. So tonight is just a feedback opportunity. We do have some of the representatives of property owners and businesses in that area that are here this evening and may choose to speak to you about their thoughts and ideas and concerns. I'm just going to give you a kind of a brief overview and answer any questions, and then certainly would encourage the chair to invite them up to speak as well. There we go. So if you're familiar with the area at all, Sultan Street is on basically the west side of the two streets. It is an area that has different uses. For example, there are some smaller homes there. There's an RV dealership. There is an auto repair. There is a laundromat. And so there's a variety of uses along this particular street. This area in question doesn't go all the way down to Highway 11, but basically comes south of Requa about halfway down. So this is the area we're focusing on. I'll go back to that map just for a second. So the area in red and the blue dots is the area that we're talking about. So we're not going down all the way to Highway 111. When we did the Highway 11 corridor specific plan, basically those properties were designated with a different designation than the properties to the south. The properties to the south are what's called mixed-use corridor. These properties are been designated what's called neighborhood general. And there's a distinction in use. Mixed-use corridor, more use allowances, neighborhood general, really restricted to small, commercial, and multifamily. So again, these are just pictures of the area, just kind of showing you, if you're not familiar with it, fairly wide street sections, variety of different business types, no singular dominant land use pattern. This is Flower Street. Again, same land use orientation, a variety of different uses, some light manufacturing, some retail, storage. So again, a wide street section, no dominant land uses. So again, just to kind of summarize what we're talking about, portions of Flower and Sultan Streets, these are the assessor parcels numbers, so a limited number of assessors, parcel numbers, properties. Current general plan designation is mixed-use neighborhood. Current zoning is neighborhood general, which again is more oriented towards small commercial and multifamily. And for some of the property owners, that neighborhood general land use was concerning because both in terms of current operations, future operations of existing businesses, or future opportunities to market the property, the neighborhood general is seen as potentially constricting some of those both current needs and perhaps future needs of the properties. They were interested in exploring different alternatives. For example, one alternative, I'm going to go back to the map here. One alternative might be to extend the mixed-use corridor designation all the way up to cover these properties, as an example. Another option might be to, and again, this would be based on continued conversations with property owners. Another option, if there was more of an interest in light industrial, current and future light industrial uses, might be to extend the workforce development overlay that's in the plan up to these properties. So no specific requests have been made yet. This is a conversation this evening. And so really, again, the goal is for you to get introduced to this, to answer any questions at the staff level. Again, we have some of the property and business owners that might want to speak to you. And then we'll decide next steps after that, working with the property and business owners. I do want to say thank you to them. They reached out, they expressed their concerns. They've been very open and willing to talk with us. And certainly, you know, when we did the Highway 11 corridor specific plan, we did as much energy and effort to reach out as we could. Couldn't touch every single property. So this is the opportunity, and this is kind of the fluidity of planning. You can always come back and take a look at your decisions and decide if that was the right decision. And so that's kind of where we're at. We're kind of raising that question this evening with you to start and see where it goes. So with that, happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions for Kevin?
You know, there's lots of different definitions to all of this mixed use, workforce overlay, et cetera, and I think it'd be useful for us if we could see like the approved uses in each of those different categories. And also, to me, what is like right across the street from, I mean, this is like two sides, right? Two streets. So what's across the street on one side is one thing and what's on the other looks like storage, right? So it would be nice to kind of define those a little bit. And I mean, I know what's there. There used to be a print shop. I don't know if they're still there. I don't know what else is over on that side of the neighborhood. And it's got its own little feel. So I'm kind of really curious to see what it is that they're thinking they would like. And if we made the change that it was maybe flexible enough, because, I don't know, things are just changing very quickly, right? And it's a lot of work for not only staff, but for our community members to come in and say, we want this. So I kind of really want to be able to clearly define all the uses that are allowed under these two different options that you brought in, whether we do the overlay or all that kind of stuff.
If you look at attachment 3 of your packet, the use table from the plan is there. So you can see what the breakdown in uses between the NG, Neighborhood General, and the MUC is. And really under the MUC, there is more uses allowed bluntly than the NG. And that's a simplistic way to say it, but there is more uses allowed. And I think well, I'm not going to speak for them. I think what you'll hear is an interest in having more options, certainly.
Since
And
we
then-
don't get a printed report anymore, I left my iPad, so can either we get that put on a screen or get a quick copy for us to have in
Yeah.
front of us as we discuss?
So what I will do, I think there's probably going to be some comments, I'm assuming. And so while that happens, I will go run and make you guys some copies and try to spear it back quickly enough that you guys aren't all done before I get back. So with that, Juvenal, are you going to be? Sure. Okay, so I will let Juvenal introduce himself this evening. I think he's kind of the spokesperson, for lack of a better word.
That could be the case.
Okay, all right, so with that, again, this is an informal project consultation, so it's more of an informal engagement, so please, podium is yours. And
Good evening, everyone.
you use that.
Oh, I don't really have, but good evening, everyone. My name is Juvenal Gonzalez. My family owns the exact building that you were referencing earlier. It used to be it used to be the first printing press in the city of Indio. So there is a lot of history when it comes down to these buildings out there. Even though they're much older, there's been a lot of improvement and a lot of contribution to the growth and the development of the city as well. As a small business speaking, right directly behind us, we have Don Gordo's, which is a laundromat that's been there since 1992. Directly adjacent to him, we have Alex with Kiko's Automotive, who's also been there and expanded now over to Palm Desert area. North of us on Requa, thank you, kind of nervous a little bit, but we have the owner of where Sunbird RV is at, who has also been and holds multiple properties, commercial properties in the city of Indio since.
Well, he bought the building in 78. 1978. In 79.
So 79.
So that it would be eliminating business that's been there for 40 years.
Yeah, so directly adjacent to that going west, we have Auto House, who's been in business or been there for.
Well, place has been there since 73 as a Mercedes repair shop.
So we have a lot of history and roots embedded in the city of Indio. And since then, there's been changes that have been adapted. At our location, we host music lessons for students that involve mariachi, traditional Mexican music. I'm taking a few groups out to Guadalajara to represent the city of Indio, to represent the United States in an international event. So all that happens in the city of Indio. We have a recording studio there where we've recorded big artists. And then when they walk through our streets, oftentimes they look at me and say, "This is where we're going to record?" And I say, "Yes, it is. Come on in and look at all the improvements that we've made inside." Along with that, there's just been so many different movements and transactions that have been held there. And just recently, I had a great idea to repurpose the building for a different business. And I walk into the city and I was notified that I could no longer do business there, that everything that we had was going to be grandfathered there, but nothing going forward could change. And really, all the businesses, and the reason why I'm calling on them is because they can, if they sell the property, they make modifications, they can no longer be operating in the city in that specific location. It hurt us tremendously, as you can see, with not just family, but supporting local businesses and just kind of our endeavors. We pitched a proposal, or we came together. We've met on numerous occasions, and I feel like this project has made us even closer as a community, as an organization, or a small corridor out in the that side of Indio. And our petition was, just thank you for listening to us and our voice of the community. We are the local property owners of that area, and we've come together because of this change in policy or in structure that has impacted us. And sometimes when I spoke to them, they were kind of confused. We don't really understand the lingo that you kind of implemented, and it's hard to sit down and understand it. just like I'm sure if I start talking to you about the, technical aspects of whatever the case is, it seems like a foreign language. Since we acquired the building in 2016, my family has invested into that building over $250,000 in the restoration of the property, making it look way different than what it did before. Collectively, all the businesses have invested over $620,000. And for a small business to keep injecting in the facade, in the structural, that's a lot of money to be put out in the span of 5 years. Collectively, we were looking at making improvements and modifications to our location, coming up to about $1.5 million in the next 5 years. These are just some raw numbers to express to you our commitment and our concerns that we have to kind of move forward with something like this. So I don't know, team, is there something that you would like to kind of voice out, or do you think I got it all?
It's pretty much all there. We would like to be able to maintain this classification that we're asking for.
One of the things that we saw was kind of, and it may be random to us, we don't understand the policies, but that block was divided in 50% commercial mixed use and 50% neighborhood general. When looking at the classifications, we understand that that is on Highway 111, it's one territory, but we ask that you consider adapting us to something like that, considering that we are using 100% of the property for business purposes, which I think is one of the classifications that they need in order to move forward with something like this. But other than that, just thank you. I appreciate your time. And any other questions, comments? Speak now.
Thank you. Yeah, would you, please?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ruben Ramos. I worked at Mercedes-Benz Palm Springs for a lot of years and purchased Auto House of the Desert in 2005. For the first, I guess, 10 years or something, it's just been really, things were really tight, you know. I put my whole life savings into this place. My building is on the corner of Requa and Salton, and everything around my building is commercial. All right. So if it were to come to me selling it, more than likely I probably wouldn't, and be giving it to my son, if anything, as an inheritance to him, who works with me and works on Mercedes-Benz also. The reclassification of the zoning makes it hard for me to do that. Makes it hard for me to sell it to my son or sell it to anyone as a business. And I understand that, if we reclassify it as residential, that it would become, available for somebody to buy it and to turn it into a residential area, multi, whatever level apartment complex or something like that. And but that's probably very thin as far as, that ever happening. And if somebody were to come in and offer me, millions of dollars for the place, I don't think they'll have a problem changing the zoning. Anyways, but just to give you a little history of myself and where I come from, I lived here in Indio all my life, and in the desert all my life, I should say. In Indio, went to Indio High School, and just was just a self-employed, a self-made person as that goes and stuff. So, thank you for hearing us, and I think where the city is going is pretty awesome. What you guys are doing is pretty awesome. I took a good long hard look at some of the stuff that you guys are doing, and it's just phenomenal. It's really good. And for Indio being, one of the probably one of the fastest growing cities in you know, the whole Southern California for sure. I mean, it's just, it's really good, and it says something about our city. And you know, I plan to do, you know, some outside, you know, fencing and, you know, making it look, you know, up now that time has gone by where I can actually afford to do that, and I've almost got the building paid off and the business paid off. Well, the business has been paid off, but the building, so. I thank you for everything, and if you guys ever need any Mercedes-Benz repairs, just look me up.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Actually, I think we might have some questions, and I can begin, which whoever would like to come up and maybe just share with us, what are some of the, what is your vision? What do you see as potential uses that you would like to see in the future? I think that would be very helpful to also help us understand what the zoning that you're requesting, how it could be modified for, you know, what you all are thinking about, so.
We're going to be very well acquainted after this, huh? One of the visions that I had for the location was to repurpose it. Right now, it's kind of split into 2 units. We occupy both units. On occasions, we have rentals for parties, for celebration of life, for quinceañeras. We've had weddings there, a couple of things. And the idea was to repurpose it, or the reason this came about was repurposing it into something a little bit more modern that I don't think the Valley has. We were looking at converting it into a speakeasy, bringing a little bit more of that Gen Z into downtown area. I work really well with a lot of artists who have won multiple Grammy nominations, Billboard awards, and the idea was to repurpose the back area into an intimate concert, something like what they have out in downtown San Diego, making a couple benches and offering an acoustic, just a different private, intimate level of experience with an artist there as well. We think that, number one, it'll drive in business, it'll create bridges with local community as well, with the officials out here, and it'll, if we're able to bring these individuals with high profiles or with a big influence, putting City of Indio back on the map will be really, really exciting.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So you've been, communicating among yourselves for a while. You've been communicating with the city for a while. Kevin mentioned a couple of different possibilities, right? The mixed-use corridor or the workforce overlay. If you could have what you wanted, what is your wish? I mean, I'm assuming you guys have one that you would be what you would really want. What are you hoping it would be?
I'm going to speak for myself, but guys, I don't know what the overlay is. We were looking. Does anybody? Mixed use. So what we were looking at was a potential conversion to mixed use.
I can jump in. So the workforce employment overlay. So if Hunel and the rest of the property owners had an interest in more industrial uses of the property, as an example, then that would be the appropriate designation under the Highway 11 Corridor Specific Plan. I think in the conversations to date, I think that the conversation has veered more towards the mixed-use corridor designation, which is what the properties to the immediate south of this area are. But if for some reason they said, we want to have more auto repair or more light industrial or manufacturing, then that's where the workforce development overlay. But I think, and certainly not speaking for them, but certainly in the conversations today, I think the mixed-use corridor has been more attractive because it offers more flexibility of uses.
Correct. We did look at the industrial side, but if we're being realistic, there isn't much industrial out there other than what's currently zoned as the storage units that have been there for a long time as well. So when obviously some of our peers would love to have that opportunity because it allows them to continue doing what they're currently doing and what they have been doing for so many years. But given the circumstances, looking at the plans, we said, if we can't have this, we'll work with the city, and if this is something that they can provide to us, we'll settle for that, for mixed use.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and it's wonderful that you are all here and talking amongst yourselves. Really, I think these planning documents are meant to push forward the vision that the community has for our city. And so, I commend you for taking the opportunity, for meeting with our staff. I guess this is a question for our team, our staff. What comes next as far as considerations? Are we planning on continuing to meet with them to refine a bit more of what the ask is for the zoning allocation? Or, I'm just curious, what would be next if we decided that we wanted to go down an exploration route?
So certainly following this, we'll have a follow-up conversation, just make sure everyone's on the same page. Typically, it would be the property owners coming in and seeking the application. However, because the plan is new, we've determined that this would be a city-sponsored application to allow them to go through this process with you. And I think part of the reason why is, as we looked at this further and talked to the consultant, there isn't a compelling reason why that break occurred. It wasn't immediately obvious. There is a mixture of uses there today. I think because there was some limited residential in the area, the consultants, and it made sense at the time, certainly thought that was a good break. But so I think in recognition that we may have not fully vetted that designation for these properties, the mixed-use designation, the city's happy to sponsor that. What that means procedurally is that, first of all, we would need something from all of the property owners. We don't want to have one property seek a designation here and then have other properties have a different designation. So we want all the affected property owners to agree to this change, and typically we can do that through some sort of letter. Once that's done, then we would begin the formal processing of that. This is an amendment to a specific plan, so ultimately you are a review body and a recommendation body to the city council. The city council would have to make the final decision. There's an environmental review component of that the staff would do as well. So it's not dissimilar to what you've been through in the recent past with adoption of plans. There's steps. There's a public hearing component, so this is an informal conversation. There will be that formal conversation. So that's kind of the next step. So, but first and foremost, we'll get back with the property owners, make sure everybody's kind of in the same headspace, so to speak, and then we'll proceed from there with starting the process to look at the change in designation. Again, this is going to be a public hearing, so there'll be noticing within 500 feet. So folks that want to weigh in on this beyond just the property owners will have a chance to give their thoughts as well.
So yeah, I was looking at the map and I kept thinking too, why was the line drawn like right there? But we did look at a lot of maps and a lot of roads, and I think the more I look at this, I think I'm glad you guys came forward. First of all, if you don't ask the questions right, we don't see everything.
Right.
And I think that's great. And Kevin, I appreciate you bringing this to us before we got an official application in front of us, right? Yeah, I mean, the more I look at it, I think if all the business owners are in agreement, the mixed use gives you a lot more choices, right? But that is definitely up to you guys what you bring, and then we'll look at it then. But it just kind of seems kind of an odd little line on a map.
Which is, I think, exactly where our concern kind of stemmed from. Here is more of a zoomed in version of it, but north of that is exactly the same zoning as south of us,
Yeah.
So, we've met with Kevin on a few occasions and explained to us a couple of the technical terms and the density, and I feel like I gotta get a job with you guys now, But definitely, we all do agree that we recommend a change. We would like a change. We have explored multiple options and channels, and I think that we've become in agreement that this is something that is not just going to happen today, and in 5, 10, 15 years down the road, we're going to say, hey, by the way, we made a mistake. We want to, no, we're fully aware of what commitment we're making, as well as obviously your support, if you support our endeavors and our vision for that area as well. And I don't know, guys, anything else you'd like to add?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for uniting, for speaking, for working with our staff. So we're going to go ahead and move and see what comes next after you do a follow-up and talk more amongst your neighbors. And again, I commend you for coming and speaking with us at this point and including us in your vision for the space. And so thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing what comes out of those conversations. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right, moving over to public hearing item 6.1. Could we get a staff report?
Good evening, Commissioners. Kendra Reef, Principal Planner. Tonight, I'm going to be presenting the West Coast Self-Storage Project for your review. Just a quick project summary. The project is seeking planning review and conditional use permit approval. The applicant, Jim Fitzpatrick, submitted his application on behalf of West Coast Self-Storage. He is not going to be able to make it in person, but he will be attending virtually and will be available for questions at the conclusion of my presentation. The proposed project is going to be built on assessor parcel number 612-130-008. It's located off of Calhoun Street and Dr. Carrion Boulevard. It has a general plan designation of workplace and employment district, and it is zoned light industrial. This was one of the 7 projects that was allowed to move forward prior to the moratorium going into effect. Just for reference, this is the proposed project location and a site plan of the overall project. The project will be constructing an 82,233 square foot self-storage building. The building will have rental self-storage units, a leasing office, restrooms, landscaping, a trash enclosure, hardscape, and 15 parking stalls for customers. The project will also be constructing 57 outdoor RV parking stalls as well. The outdoor RV parking storage will serve as an accessory use to the main structure. The maximum height at the top of parapet will be 24 feet from the finished grade of the site. Site access to the property will be taken from one newly proposed access drive on Dr. Carrion Boulevard. Stormwater retention via one surface stormwater basin facility is provided on the southern end of the site. The development also includes a landscape plan comprised of desert and other drought-tolerant planting materials. The proposed project is consistent with the general plan policies in the Indio Unified Development Code, and that the site is located within the light industrial zone, and self-storage facilities are conditionally permitted uses, and RV storage parking stalls are accessory uses under the UDC. The project is compliant with the City of Indio general plan. With a conditional use permit, the project is compliant with the UDC. The project is also categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15332 infill development. With the application of relevant conditions of approval, the project can be improved, and conditions of approval are binding and must be adhered to. Again, the project applicant is available online via Zoom if you have additional questions for them. But if you have additional questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
You had said that this was already in the application process prior to the moratorium.
Correct.
How many more do we have in the application process currently?
I believe we have one.
One more?
One more. Yeah.
Just curious.
And for the one that we do still have in the queue, at this time we don't have a planning commission date set for that, but if we had to estimate, it would probably be later this summer.
You referred to the space as workforce, right? It's workforce, I'm trying to blank, WEP, I think it is. So part of, we keep talking about how we don't have a lot of industrial land for industrial use in the entire city left. And we also want these spaces to be used to create jobs. Do we have any idea after the construction if there would be one job, or if it would be completely automated and there would be practically no jobs created with this site?
The applicant will be able to provide a better idea of the actual numbers that they're going to be having. So there will be a leasing office, so there will be someone that'll be staffing the leasing office, and then they may have security options on site as well, but they can speak to that a bit more than I can.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, if there's no more questions for staff, then we'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and we'll welcome the applicant if they have a presentation or would like to speak more on the project.
Jim and Casey, you guys are able to unmute yourselves and present. Jim or Casey, can you hear me? Scott, are you able to hear me? It seems that we're having technical difficulties. They can hear us, but we can't hear them.
The secretary is texting them or messaging them through Zoom to see if they can answer the question that the vice chairperson asked.
The applicants did not have a presentation, so they will only be responding to questions that you may have or providing context about their business and further details about employment opportunities.
Great, thank you for that clarification. So if we could get a response, and then maybe if anybody else has any additional questions while we're waiting for a response, we can get those in since it looks like we'll be communicating with them through messages.
Casey responded. She said we would have 3 regular managers per day. We have relief managers as well as people who perform maintenance on the project as well.
Can you ask, is that 3 part-time people, 1 full-time person? If they can break down full-time and part-time, that would be nice.
If they're unable to respond via Zoom, they do have the option to call in as well. That might be something that could work a bit better.
This is a joke.
Hi, we can hear someone speaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Jim Fitzpatrick. I'm with West Coast Self Storage. I also represent the ownership of the property or the proposed development. And we want to thank staff for their hard work on this. And just quickly to answer your question. So we have 3 full-time people that are there. Our sites are typically open from 6 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. So therefore, it requires like one person first thing in the morning, then there's overlap, and then one person toward the end of the day. So there's 3 on any given day, there's 3 people. We also have part-time managers that we employ. We also employ maintenance people, and then there's senior staff that oversees the manager. So probably all in, there's probably about 10 people involved in the project.
Do you own other storage units, and this is something that you own multiples, and this is how you run them all, or?
It is. We operate approximately 110 facilities in 5 western states, California, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, and Idaho. And we operate, we currently have 2 new developments in process, one in Palm Springs and one in Palm Desert. So we're a growing business, and we've been around as a company for about 15 years.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? I guess this is a question. In your landscape plan, were drought-resistant trees and plants considered?
Yes, they are. I think we work pretty closely with staff to make sure we gave them a palette of trees. And, you know, if they were to condition some different trees, we'd certainly work with them to change them out if they needed to be.
Great, thank you. All right, well, thank you for your time. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on the item?
There are none, but written comments were received and distributed to the commissioners and posted on the City of Indio's website.
Thank you, Ms. Brenneman. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and go into deliberations.
Ask a quick question. When you look at the buildings, right, they're very, a little modern, which isn't a bad thing. What I couldn't look when I looked kind of at the map is, where is all of the equipment? Like, is there parapets high enough that it hides all equipment up above, or are they like in storage rooms, or I couldn't quite figure out where the utility spaces were.
I believe that their utilities are located kind of in that, near that loading area that's depicted there. But if the applicant wants to attest that a bit more, they can provide you with those further site details. Yeah.
All right, great. We'll reopen the public hearing and allow the applicant to elaborate more.
Hill, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. So there's no rooftop equipment. And if you look at the site plan, there's little pockets on the side, on the interior of the facility where that's where the mechanical units will be put. All the electrical equipment will be inside a room inside the building. So there's really no equipment that's visible to the public except for those 2 condensing unit pockets that are inside the facility.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and we had no comments, so we'll go ahead and move to deliberations. Any thoughts?
I'll go ahead and start, but it's more towards, I guess, staff. We recognize there's like a moratorium in place, but I guess in the future, looking at our work industrial zones, I'd like to see how we can increase or make sure that we have more than 5 to 10 jobs when we're looking at industrial zones. I don't know if it's something, in policy in place while we're looking at whether it be self-storage facilities, but I understand it's a work industrial zone, but how can we work to increase those numbers since we are like the largest city? But that, and, I guess too, maybe I'd like to see the applicant here maybe in person so we can be able to contact and talk to them in person. Thank you.
The workplace employment subcategory land use designation provides for a variety of employment generating uses that we would all like to see, but self-storage is consistent with the allowable permitted uses in that land use designation. So since it is in compliance, trying to kind of find you can word it a little bit better than I think.
So to pick up on what Kendra said, so to the commissioner's point, it really is a policy discussion. You as a commission and city council kind of stepped into the water a little bit on this when there was the language that was added to the Unified Development Code about having fronting commercial or retail uses. The moratorium was your next step into the water. You kind of put your feet in, then you got to your legs in terms of that issue with the moratorium. So coming out of that policy conversation, you're ultimately going to, as a planning commission, recommend to the city council in your advisory role potential policy considerations, which can range, as we've discussed, from no changes to significant changes. It could include potential consideration of job requirements, to Commissioner Lopez's point. So we're in this kind of policy consideration phase of the moratorium where you will get the opportunity to have that conversation. As it stands right now, the city cannot legally require minimum employment numbers because there's no regulatory basis for that. You can certainly encourage it, but at the end of the day, we can only enforce what we're legally able to enforce. But you as a commission can ultimately recommend to your council policy considerations that could modify that down the road, if you will. One thing I do want to mention is the city does offer in-person and hybrid participation opportunities. So while we certainly encourage our applicants to attend in person whenever possible, we make that clear to all the applicants, the preference of the Planning Commission to see you and to see the applicants as much as possible. And unfortunately, we do have some technical difficulties tonight, so you couldn't even see them virtually. But it is an option that we do offer. We did not, some cities have gone back to in-person meetings only, but we continue to offer the in-person and hybrid. So, but we do as staff, as I said, recommend to applicants to be in person whenever possible.
Okay, any other comments?
Since we're talking about policy and policy changes, maybe one of the things we can look at too is that for someone not to be here in person, there should be some big problem. There shouldn't just be because it's a choice. I mean, we have to be here in person, and I think that we need to go back to having I can see allowing the residents to watch and to communicate, but if you're an applicant, I think that I almost feel like they don't feel that we're valuable enough for them to come in person. So I think that we need to maybe look at policy change where they need to be here unless there are reasons why they can't be here. They're ill, whatever. I mean, some type of policy change, because it's really hard to have these conversations when the applicant isn't here. And then you have technology problems, and that makes it even harder. So I think it's unfair of the applicants to expect us to be here to look at their project and to have these conversations, but then they're not here so that we can have those direct conversations. So since we're talking policy, maybe that's a policy we can work on.
So we have heard that, and we will certainly speak with offline. In my job, that I know you sometimes don't want me to do it, I do need to remind the commission that this is a quasi-judicial action. So the policy conversations we do encourage you to get back to the matter before you. The policy concerns, certainly, we've heard that, and we will address that in a follow-up manner, but do recommend that you do have an active quasi-judicial action before you in terms that does require some sort of potential consideration of action by the commission.
sorry to, one more thing, but if we have that policy in place for council, maybe it should be the same as for a commission. When you go before a commission or council, to have those same policies and procedures in place while taking some type of action, legislative action, approving a project. It should be this, if council has those policies in place, then the commission should as well.
I think,
Commissioner?
yeah, please, please.
Excuse me, just to piggyback on what Mr. Snyder had just said, there are certainly options for direction to staff for consideration in future actions. However, within this context, while commenting on the in-person versus electronic availability of the applicant specifically as to your decision-making process may be appropriate, in this instance, in terms of a larger policy change and discussion, that should be either agendized or directed to the council, directed later in the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. I think we do have an agenda for commissioner comments. So if there are any additional comments that are not specific to this project, we can address them there. And so my comments about the project, it seems very straightforward. We've done what we can with the zoning. And so I think I'm ready to entertain a motion.
All right, I'll make the motion. Are you going to read the motion, or do I still read the motion? How are we doing this? We still read the motion? Okay, perfect. So I make a motion to approve resolution number 2061 of the Planning Commission of the City of Indio, California, conditionally approving the planning review and conditional use permit for the development of an approximately 82,233 square foot single-story self-storage building, 57 RV storage parking stalls, and associated improvements on a approximately 4.5 acre parcel off of Dr. Carrion Boulevard, and determining that the proposed project is categorically exempt from the environmental review pursuant to section 15332 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines.
I'll second.
And I think we vote electronically. Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to the applicant. All right, moving on to item, we have no action items, so this is a moment, item 8, commissioner comments. Any additional comments? Nothing? Okay. I actually do have a comment. I just got back from a workshop that I attended with Mayor Ortiz, our Indio Water Authority General Manager, and our Administrative Services Manager. The workshop is called, I'm blanking now. It is hosted by the Sonoran Institute, Growing Water Smart, and it's really the nexus of land use and water conservation. And the reason I'm bringing this up is we just spent 3 days talking about our water efficiency, things that we've talked about here, about our concerns with shade, even plant palettes that are more adequate, and how we're addressing those sort of needs in our community. One thing that I think was new to me is that apparently there are some legislation at the state level down the pipeline that would limit our ability to water non-use turf. Is that correct? Is that the...
There are a number of state
right, and this is
actions.
all for water conservation. And so I'm hoping that maybe we could ask for our Indio Water Authority General Manager to come and do a study session so that we could all be aware of what's down the pipeline, and also that they're implementing some programs that I think we've tried to do in the past for turf removal that were not as successful. So I think this is going to be a wonderful space for them to come and tell us what's down the pipeline, and then what else we should be considering to try to get ahead of the state regulations that can have a really serious effect in our development as moving forward, because as I was learning, it's going to be very costly to retrofit. And so we, as the land use advisors, and we might want to start having a conversation about some recommendations. And so I want to thank our Indio Water Authority staff for being there for 3 days, our mayor, and it was a wonderful learning experience for me. And so I'm hoping that we can request from staff to add them at a near agenda, if you all agree.
Yeah, I think it's great. I'd be more than happy to spend a little time getting ahead, maybe ahead of the state of California's new rules and regulations, and have a better understanding of what's coming. And of course, it would be good for our staff to maybe know that we know a little bit about what's coming, versus us being surprised down the road. So I think it'd be worth it to have him come, maybe if we have a light agenda at some point in the near future.
Great, thank you. And that's all from me. Are there any staff items?
Yes, so a couple things. Regarding the last item, Chair, right now, I think, and I'll confirm with Kendra, so this is a tentative date, we could put this, the request for the confirming availability of IWA staff, whether it's the general manager or another staff person, potentially for August 9th. So we will confirm that date as a potential date for the presentation that you requested. We will be having a number, I guess what I'm trying to tell you in advance is your summer is going to be a busy one. You will have items on July 12th, July 26th, potentially August 9th, and August 23. And several of them are very significant projects. You've heard about them before: the Desert Retreat Project, the Calhoun Specific Plan Project. These are large residential projects, so those will be coming before you. We have an expansion at one of the auto dealerships that will be coming before you. We have a new project, a fuel station project that will be coming before you. And then the last self-storage facility that Principal Planner Reef mentioned. So all to say that you will have a busy summer, which means no time off, sorry. Cancel all your vacations. I'm just kidding, by the way, just kidding. But it will be a busy summer. This is indicative, I believe, of continued interest in doing projects in the city of Indio. And we are not really seeing that slow down. We continue to field a lot of inquiries. We have several projects that will come probably in early fall that are not ready. We're still working on them. But the point is to tell you that your workload will stay busy and constant. I know sometimes there's concern that there's nothing happening or things are slow, but I guarantee you they're not. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done in advance of that. So pretty much from now, I would say through October, you will have a fairly consistent agenda. We're going to try to keep the agendas for those two big projects relatively light so that you aren't overloaded with those large projects. We expect there'll be a lot of public interest in them, so you may have a fair amount of public testimony on those projects. So we'll try to keep those meeting agendas pretty tight, make sure that there's a limitation on the number of agenda items. So just again, wanted to give you that heads up. And then we are moving towards August of 2023 is going to be a major shift in how we do business. We will be launching our new permitting software system. It's called iPermits. And it will be a comprehensive permitting system that will affect planning, building, engineering, Indio Water Authority, code enforcement, business licensing. This will be a GIS-based platform, and it has many attributes, one of them being that we will be able to communicate all on the same platform. We will no longer have 3, 4, or 5 different software programs that don't talk to each other. That will be beneficial for the staff, and that will be beneficial for applicants and clients. There will also be the opportunity to check real-time status of the application that you're processing, whether it's a building permit application or a planning application. You'll be able to go on and actually see who's completed their reviews and who hasn't completed their reviews and where it's at in the process. We will have, right now we have a very awkward system where there are multiple steps to get payments made. You will be able to make your payments in real time. So this is a very exciting, albeit heavy lift. We have staff from all departments working on this. It will be a kind of a rush to the finish, but this is an exciting new customer service opportunity that will improve the internal and external experience. So we're very excited to move to this, but I just want to share with you that that there is a lot of work being done behind the scenes on this. So if you see planning staff or building staff or any other staff and they look a little tired, that's why. But it's very exciting. This is a big deal, and it's been in works now for about 18 months. So we're coming to the end of it, and I think our clients will be very happy. It will mark a shift in how we do our work. We will be electronic only submissions, but we are going to help mitigate that. We will have a self-help kiosk area set up in our lobbies where we will be able to instruct clients on how to do things electronically to help them. So we will walk them through it, so to speak. Hopefully after a couple times they will get the hang of it. But following the launch of the system, which is late August, we will not be accepting hard copy documents. The system doesn't work if there's a mixture of hard and electronic, so it's going to be all electronic. This is how many communities do it. This permitting software system is being adopted. So far, Cathedral City, Rancho Mirage, Palm Springs, Palm Desert, and La Quinta, and ourselves. So the majority of the cities in the valley are using this. So it's also kind of, I guess, a commonality throughout the valley for many parties that do business in multiple cities. What was the other thing I was going to share with you? We talked briefly about the moratorium. I will admit we're a little behind. Workload got ahead of us, but I plan to get back on track. So we are behind on the community survey and my interactions with you. I did get some feedback from Commissioner Fajardo, and the next step is for me to get the questions and everything we talked about at that previous discussion and kind of get that package up and over to you before we get the survey out on the street. So that is on my to-do next week. So apologies for the delay, but unfortunately other things came up. So, but we'll be working on that, and we'll catch up to make sure that we stay on the timeline that you and the council asked to be followed. So with that, happy to answer any questions. And Kendra has.
I just want to add one thing. So I know Kevin said that we're going to be really busy over the next few weeks, and we are, but I just wanted to let you guys know next Planning Commission meeting, we don't have any projects set for the agenda, so we won't be meeting for that one. So, yes, June 28th. We won't have a Planning Commission meeting, and then I just wanted to, you mentioned it's August 26th for that date. It's August 23rd for, I just want to make cleared up for the record that that's going to be the date where we have a heavy project load for that as well. Sorry.
About that.
No, I just wanted to make sure that on the record, if anyone goes back, that they have the correct date.
Jessica reminded me that although there was an informal introduction, we should, for the public record and for those watching in attendance, introduce our new Assistant City Attorney, Jillian Martins. She will be replacing Lauren Sanchez, and give Jillian an opportunity to introduce herself formally to the rest of you.
Hi, so I'm Jillian Martins. I have 11 plus years of experience in municipal law. I work, of course, for Cole Huber, and I'm staffing this meeting, and I'll be assisting with a number of projects with the city as the new assistant. Lauren will be helping me for the next few weeks to introduce myself, but if you have any particular questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll do our best to answer your questions or allay your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Glad to have you.
So that's the end of the staff items. If there are any questions that we can answer for the commission, we're happy to do so.
Are there any other community groups that are having the same conversation with the city staff that we just had regarding, the zoning?
So this is the first interaction we've had regarding concerns with the Highway 11 corridor specific plan. So the short answer is no. I can't say that someone won't show up at the doorstep tomorrow. But Juvenal, who was the main speaker this evening, he made the initial contact, and so there was a great opportunity to sit down and talk with the property owners and businesses out there. But so far, they are the only ones that have raised any concerns. And as you heard, I think that they've been very thoughtful in how they're looking at this, trying to be as thoughtful as they can, because they recognize that they don't want to necessarily come back either, so.
Going back to your survey, can you check to see if you received my feedback on some of the, I think, I can't think right now. I had emailed you a few things, few suggestions on the survey questionnaire that we're going to be sending out. I think I probably sent it to you like the following day, if you want to just check to see if you received that information. Thank you.
Kevin, would you like to comment on the BH Properties community meeting as well?
Thank you, Kendra. Yes, so last Thursday evening, there was a community meeting. So BH Properties is the property owner of approximately 200 acres at the southwest corner of Avenue 42 in Monroe. It's basically across from where the Starbucks is and the road leading down to Walmart and the Quick Quack Car Wash, if you're familiar with that area. So BH Property owns approximately 200 acres. They had a community meeting last week because they are developing a master plan, specific plan, for the development of that property. What they presented to the public is conceptual, obviously, but what they're proposing is approximately 1.8 million square feet of industrial, about 850 to 1,000 multifamily units, and about 10 acres of commercial. And that covers that 200 acres. So we've been meeting with them and talking with them. The project there's been no formal submittal, but they felt that they were far enough along in their conceptualization that they wanted to go out and present it to the public, so they did. About 40 folks showed up. We encouraged them to do a broad-based mailing, which they did, roughly about 1,500 feet out, so that was good. 40 folks showed up to the meeting. It was a good conversation, lots of good questions were asked. Obviously, lots of questions around what's going to happen with infrastructure. And so, certainly there would be improvements that need to be done to adjacent roadways. The Monroe Street Bridge overpass improvement project is moving forward. That project is expected to be under construction approximately a year from now and last about 2 years. So perhaps around late summer of 2026, you would see the new interchange operational. So there were, those were the tone of the questions. So the next steps for them, they are putting together an environmental impact report. They will ultimately make formal application to the city. They are going to seek a specific plan approval that'll be accompanied. They will need to also seek a general plan amendment because parts of their property are zoned regional commercial, parts of their property are zoned mixed-use neighborhoods, so they're going to have to kind of have the land use designations fit the plan and then seek a specific plan approval. So obviously a very large scale project, lots more information to come. Very early planning stages, no formal applications have been made to the city, and they committed to the attendees that they would be coming back out and sharing more information as they move further along in their planning. They will have a website up at the end of this month. So once that's available, we'll make sure that the Planning Commission is aware of that so you can go on and take a look at yourself. Thank you.
I have a question about Indio Marketplace. As I'm sure you're familiar by now, what happened there many years ago is an ever-healing wound, and every time that something gets pushed for development there and then it falls through, it's kind of like ripping the scab off for that community. I think a lot of people were disappointed, even people who were against or were upset about it when they saw what was planned, maybe kind of got excited and were happy to know that it was finally going to happen, what happened there, and what's the next step there? are they looking to sell that property now and let someone else develop it, or?
So unfortunately, I'm not the best person to answer that. I'm not involved in any direct conversations about that. Obviously, it's in the paper that the Hagen company decided not to move forward with the redevelopment plans. I don't know what their immediate plans are for the property. Obviously, the city owns property behind it. We will continue to look at how that property can and will be developed in the future. But I don't think it's too far of an assumption if the Hagen company is not going to develop it, that they may seek to sell it to someone who may have interest or willingness either to pursue redevelopment or perhaps some other plan for that property. And as a reminder, the front half or the existing Indio Marketplace, that is privately owned. The property behind that is roughly approximately 19 acres is owned by the city. And so they are separate properties under separate ownership. And so any plans that the Hagen company or any future owners have are not necessarily dependent on what happens with the city's plans and vice versa.
Okay, great. We'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you for all of that information. We'll go ahead and adjourn to our next Planning Commission meeting, which will be August 9. No. I'm sorry, July. We're not having, yeah, I just skipped a whole month. I might be on vacation, might not be. No, I'm kidding. July 12th. Thank you very much. We'll see each other on the 12th.
Thank you for taking a whole.